Glad to have you here. Hi, boys and girls. We're sitting here with Sifu Kisu of Harmonious
Are
Fist
we on?
and Sifu Scott Jensen of 10,000 Victories. I am David Way, your host, and I'm serving Big Snow Mountain. Really good tea. Hi.
Hello,
Yeah, we're recording. We're recording live now.
welcome to everybody on Wudang West.
Yay.
It's such a pleasure to be here, brother. Thank you for having us.
I'm overjoyed to host two esteemed masters, such as yourselves. And the way I understand it, you guys are both Shaolin masters of two different lines.
Two branches from the same lineage, yes.
Yeah, we're both Northern Shaolin style, from Northern Shaolin style. And there's plenty of other Shaolin, but Northern Shaolin style is one very cohesive and famous style. And we're both experts in that style.
Oh, he's an expert. I just.
Modesty. Well, I'm overjoyed. Both of you guys have been training, teaching almost as long as I've been alive. And so I'm very humbled and honored to have you both here to pick your brains about what it means to have a traditional art in our modern day.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, so you guys, who wants to start? Let me
Well, I
start.
think
with-
you need to start.
Sure.
Bubbles.
You found my
I
son's
found
stash.
your son's stash.
Wow.
He's a clever kid.
Oh, I think the bubbles are good.
Great for atmosphere. Good for training.
You see that cheek? Look at that cheek.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so
We're sort of talking about the Shaolin tradition in the modern world and what it means to be able to keep your phone
I'm so sorry.
in the modern world.
I don't edit these either.
Oh, I'm glad we got that clear at the very beginning of the podcast rather than at the end. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like these.
Sorry, that was a family emergency. I'm back.
For sure.
I don't know if you noticed the Boondocks thing, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm deep with it. Oh, goodness gracious.
So go ahead, Sifu Scott.
Well, I was just trying to get us on track. I hadn't actually had a second comment
Oh,
lined up after that.
Yeah, I'm completely short-sighted by that as well, so give me a second.
You know, for me, a lot of the reason that I teach, I absolutely teach. I think, to see my students grow and to have the satisfaction of watching them, in the modern world, we have a lot of very short-term relationships. And when you study traditional martial arts, it's a long-term relationship. And I think a lot of our transactions in the modern world are very, very brief. And it's a very transactional relationship where we do something with somebody and that's all the relationship is this, this doing something, performing a service for one or the
I
other,
think they're buying
exchanging
something.
goods.
Yeah.
But when we're teaching, I get to have a long-term relationship with people from all different walks of life. Not, it's like normally we wouldn't see these people gather in the same room. Like the only thing that we're sharing is our love of the martial arts. But that unites everybody. And then over time, it's amazing. People become stronger, they become happier, they become braver, and then they become more competent, like in every part of their life. And that type of real growth where we talk about martial arts and we're fighting, we think about fighting, we're thinking about self-defense. And if we're not getting good at self-defense, if we're not getting good at fighting, then there's a certain point we're not really doing martial arts. But in the end, we have to all live together. We have to live with ourselves, we have to live with our families. And if we can become strong enough that we can help each other, that's a really wonderful thing to do. So to me, watching that sort of growth and development in my students, that's really wonderful. And the other thing for me is just that it is a living tradition. I learned the Northern Shaolin style from my teacher, and I certainly don't want to be the one to watch it die on my turn. You
Can you
know,
remind us who your teacher is?
my teacher is Wong Jackman and Grandmaster Northern Shaolin. And
The guy who kicked Bruce Lee's ass.
the guy who kicked Bruce Lee's ass,
Renowned.
the guy who gave Bruce Lee his first real lesson in martial arts. And he taught very authentic Shaolin. And I think that there's something there. And maybe this is something you really can talk about. So like what is being lost a little bit, you know? And you know, this is these martial arts, each one of them is a little bit like a language. And you know, we don't know how Latin sounded anymore. Everyone can say, we can sort of have a common agreement about this is how we're speaking in Latin and we'll communicate that way, but nobody knows how Latin was actually pronounced. You know?
It's a language with a powerful sub-codec. There's an encoding to keep it hidden, which I think is one of the problems that's come along into this future time. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
But yeah. My teacher says the martial arts should be a lifetime pursuit. Right? Is to you know, it's not a temporary relationship. It's not a transactional relationship. It's if you don't understand the culture, it can be very confusing for you and even detrimental to you. You know, I made so many mistakes in protocol and interaction with my teacher and his group, not being.
Well, I think we all did.
Absolutely.
I mean, when Kung Fu started landing in the 60s and 70s in America, was America ready for Chinese Kung Fu? Absolutely not. I mean, there wasn't a single person in North America who wasn't born in China, who had any idea of how to be a student with a Kung Fu teacher. You know, it's a completely different culture. And, you know, for some of the teachers that we had, they're really hardcore. I mean, they're not just a different culture, but they're sort of the older generation exponents of that culture. Yeah. And when I started studying with Wong Jackman, I had very little clue of how to behave in class, how to treat a teacher, what to talk to my teacher about. And, you know, the only advice I had, which was fantastic advice, was just work out really hard. Don't talk during class. Yeah. And, you know, when I first studied with Peter Ralston, and he was very, very remarkable martial artist. He was the first foreigner to win the Wushu championships in Taiwan in 1978. And that was a full contact fighting tournament without gloves. And so he won that, the first foreigner to do so, first like a non-Asian, first Westerner to win that tournament. And so I studied with him first, and then when I went to study with Wong Jackman, you know, I asked him for some advice, and his advice was, you know, once Sifu teaches you something, just go practice it over and over and over again without stopping. Don't talk to anybody else, and try to leave a puddle of sweat on the floor. And you know, that was great advice, except that his class had moved from like a basement with little ventilation to the Fort Mason Center, right next to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco Bay. And the first thing Sifu Wong Jackman did, every single class came in, was he opened all of the windows, and then these huge windows as wide as possible. And that room was hovering in the 50s or 60s, every class. Yeah. It was very hard to sweat hard enough to get a puddle of sweat on the floor, you know? But I try and do that anyways, and you know, that works. And but aside from working hard, I had no idea, you know. And I think all of these lessons, you know, Keith and I've talked about this before, we just learned them all the hard way, you know, just say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, didn't really appreciate the etiquette of the culture. And at least for my teacher, he wasn't about to explain it to you when you said the wrong thing, you know. It did take a while to figure this
I never got kicked out, but I did come close.
out. Yeah, no, I know there were moments where you know, Sifu lost a bit of patience with me, you know, and of course you know, I mean, also I started with him when I was about 19, 18, 19. you know, so I was very young.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And I would like to ask a racial question. Were you the only white dude in Wong Jack Man school?
No, absolutely not. And that's a really big thing that's something that is sort of important to say because part of the mythology here was that he was accused of being racist and saying, you know, don't teach
That's why I love it.
the wild, and that
And
was
that's why we were
absolutely not
mad
true.
at Bruce Lee, and that
And
is not true.
And that's absolutely not true. And you know, I'm the inheritor, you know, and I'm a Caucasian. And the but when I came to class, I wasn't the first Caucasian in the class, and there were Black people, there were Latinos. Absolutely, you know, the one thing he would not tolerate was if he thought you had gang connections. If you're connected to any sort of Chinese gang, the whole Chinatown underworld scene, he was completely out of that. Wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot
And that's
pole.
actually a big part of the martial arts at large.
And that
There's
was
a lot of gangsters.
Yeah, and that was sort of a distancing factor. He was like not in the community in a certain way because of that. And never showed up to tournaments or other events. You know, for a while he did things on his own, but no, yeah. You know, very early on in the school, in the 60s, you know, see, the thing is that part of his mission was to come here and teach. And to not teach Chinese people, to bring Kung Fu, to actually bring the traditional lineage art to the United States and share it with Americans. So to exclude people would have been completely like the opposite of his actual mission.
Wow, so that was all fabricated myth.
That's exactly. And that's the worst part of the whole thing. And I mean, for Americans, we're very sensitive about racism. You know, you can accuse people of a lot of things, but as soon as you call someone racist in America, that's serious business. You know, other parts of the world, they're a little more, they don't have quite the attitude about it, but we have plenty of racism to go around. You know, and it's been a really negative factor in our society. So it is a serious thing to like, you know, accuse someone of being racist when in fact they're going out of their way, you know, out of their comfort zone to not be that. You know, to come to a foreign country, to try and adapt to America for a traditional Chinese Kung Fu master, that's not easy. And then a lot of the first students that he had just treated him terribly in terms of respect and, you know, like learning his material and not giving him credit.
Making up their own style.
Making up their own style, saying that they learned from an
Own
anonymous
style.
Shaolin monk, or just one thing after another. This is one reason that no one never took pictures with any. And because people would have used those photos incorrectly,
Yes.
claimed lineage and authority from him, you know. So
A very humble man, very quiet, very unassuming, and highly skilled.
yeah,
I have to say.
He only recently passed.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
yeah, in the end of 2018.
Scott introduced me right before he passed. I always wanted to meet him, and I got a chance to meet him right before he passed. So great honor. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you for supporting me.
Well, while we're on the conversation of dispelling the myth, what other aspects of that myth could we explore? Because there's the conversation of Bruce Lee was the one who wanted to teach all the foreigners, and he got in trouble with the traditionalists. So that's not true.
No.
Then the other story was that Bruce Lee's back was broken by Wong Jack Man, and
He didn't walk away unscathed, is my understanding. It's like I've actually known some of the people that were reputed to have been in the room. And so I've heard different stories of the account. And let's just say that he got his comeuppance that day. I don't mean to speak with authority.
he got his comeuppance. Can we look that up on Urban Dictionary real quick? We need to get-
We need a button for that.
Come on. Because the way that I understand traditional martial arts, if there's two masters in a neighborhood, they have their own respective schools, let's say they fight, challenge, the loser leaves town.
School,
And
right?
after the fight, Bruce Lee moved to Seattle.
Yep.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you ask Wong Jackman about the fight, one thing that he might say, I mean, he said on occasion, not every single time, I'm sure, but was, my sign is still up.
Yeah, true. It's true. It's true.
And there you have it.
And that summed it up for the entire martial arts community in San Francisco. And so, you know, that was really all.
Then Bruce went on to attain legendary status. Now he's in power. God bless him.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I have another question that kind of came up because you had mentioned how Wong Jack Man despised the gangsters. And so there's also a big prominence of Freemasonry in traditional Chinese martial arts too. And I'm wondering if you guys are familiar with that stuff.
I haven't really encountered that with any of my teachers.
I've encountered it with other groups, not with my teacher either. My teacher's a scientist.
You know, the only person that I found was very interesting that I did encounter that with was Su Wei, the founder of the
ACCHS.
ACCHS, and he was a high level Freemason.
The
And-
Chinese kind.
The Chinese kind. He was the highest rank that they had in China. So he was like 33rd level. He showed me his ring and all this stuff and told me about the whole thing in China. That
Did you learn the secret handshake?
No,
I'm just
no,
teasing.
no. But I
That stuff's
could
cool.
guess what it might be because people, I would say, have tried their secret handshakes on me. And I notice it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. When people, like certain ways they'll grip you or press your fingers, and it's like a little noticeable and a little bit different, you know, and you're like,
Lots
and
of,
then I'll do it back to them just to like see if the conversation changes, you know?
Oh, you're a brother.
But it was funny because yeah. Yeah, that I found that very interesting. Oh, the Chinese Freemasons, it was a thing. I had no idea, you know? But none of my Kung Fu teachers were ever involved in that.
Oh, I think it might have been more southern. If I'm not mistaken.
I would sound, that makes a lot of sense.
a lot of Southern guys in that world, as well as the organized working together club.
Yeah. Nice way to put it.
Yeah, lot of
Okay,
that. I know some high level teachers that learned from men who were hatchet men for the gangs. And that's a prevalent thing. I won't name any lineages, but there are several lineages that owe their heritage to some of these working together associations.
Okay. Now, can I ask, because I also understand there to be a lot of ritual magic, black magic in those sects too?
Well, you know, see, the thing about, particularly for Wong Jackman, was he was Jingwu. It was San Francisco Jingwu. So his philosophy was Jingwu, and to just sort of fill in when I'm saying Jingwu or he as Cantonese, they might have said Jingmo.
Jingmo.
And that's the experts of martial arts, but it's an association that was created in the 1920s by this famous hero, Huo Jia. This is depicted in a lot of movies. He's a frequent many movies about his life in different ways. And but he realized that the traditional kung fu was dying. I mean, the railroads were coming in. There was no need for the caravan escorts anymore. You could learn how to shoot a pistol and become a bodyguard in a short period of time. So the whole career path of being a martial arts expert and doing those occupations was dying very suddenly. But he saw that there was enormous benefit to learning martial arts, and that it was strengthening to the Chinese nation to have martial arts. And that at that time, the Chinese were called the weak men of Asia, and they were starving, they were sick, they had no physique, they were small.
They brought in the opium.
And that helped. The whole opening thing certainly helped weaken them.
Yeah.
But the idea was to strengthen the people and to remove the mysticism, to remove the to remove the magic, to sort of integrate concepts of Western exercise and Western culture to make it a positive thing. And it was a modernization. It was an attempt to modernize and remove like these you know, like, in the past, you had to make lifelong vows of loyalty
Yep.
and obedience to your teacher. And,
My concept now.
and so Jing was the first school that you could attend where you could study from multiple teachers from multiple different lineages under the same roof. You paid one fee,
College.
women could, exactly, and women could join too.
A
And they
repository.
had social activities, they had things like dance, photography classes. It was a very new thing that was developing, but the heart was this martial core of training. And there's still offices, it still exists, it's spread out through Southeast Asia, it's less so in mainland China. And it was like a private organization founded by businessmen. So, you know, the idea of teaching multiple arts and doing something to preserve it, that's where Longjakpo was coming from.
Mhm.
So none of that was involved at all. It was in that way very sanitized and sort of attempting to be more modern. And for me, that appealed to me. You know, I didn't want any of that stuff.
There's a very interesting holdover that from the traditions that is killing the traditional Chinese martial arts right now. You know what that is?
Mm.
The secretism.
Mm-hmm.
Secretism.
The clannishism, clannishness,
Yeah.
and a secretism, for sure.
It's killing it because there's all these teachers holding back. And the idea in Chinese martial art is that your students should surpass you in skill. They should be better than you.
Every wave bigger than the next.
And there's been so much held back that like I never got as good as I wanted to be. I don't think I ever got as good as my teacher. I move a lot like my teacher. I'm a lot bigger than my teacher as well. But even with my loyalty for over 40-something years, there's still little things held back. My teacher, don't get me wrong, my teacher was very generous with me, and I'm very thankful. But I see it a lot, the stuff that doesn't get passed on, and it's that, you didn't ask me this, but I'll tell you anyway. The other thing that's killing it is people don't want to be students anymore. They want to immediately go and make a YouTube video of what they learned in class that they practicing. And that's another thing that's killing tradition. It's everybody's a teacher and nobody's a student.
Yeah, I mean, the name Kung Fu means hard work. I mean, you know, you actually have to put in the hard work to get the Kung Fu.
Eat bitter and taste sweet.
And, you know, this, I don't think our culture, there's not much. The idea of mastering something gradually over a long period of time, that's not something that everybody signs up for.
Everything's
know?
instant now.
It's
Get it on the
instant, you get a
internet.
new login, you get a new password, you download a new game, you play the new game and you move on.
You watch a video
You know.
on YouTube and you're an expert.
Yeah, and you just, exactly, and it's like, you can watch the video on YouTube and there's a lot of great videos, but you don't get the skill from that. You know, you have to pay for the skill with sweat and pain, and that's the only currency that actually buys the skill.
Well said. Well said. There's no great skill without great sacrifice. It's true. And anybody I know, that you as a teacher and as a practitioner, I've watched you over the years, we've known each other a very long time. You've worked hard, same with you. You humbled yourself and you were there every.
Well, I think, I know what you're saying too, like the sacrifice, you know, it's worth it to talk about that for a moment, I think. Because to me, there's a really big difference between sacrifice and hardship. And there's a lot of guys in China that have survived a lot of hardship and learned Kung Fu. But that's not the same as making sacrifices, okay? Like, you know, I could have been a lawyer, I could have been a doctor, you know, I got good grades, I could have done any of those things, you know, but I chose this career, you know? I mean, I'm going to class 4 or 5 nights a week. I didn't go socialize. I went to class. I trained for 3 or 4 hours. My friends visited from out of town. I'm like, hey, I'll see you after class. I'm gonna go to class, I'm gonna shower. Yeah, I'll be there about 9:30 or 10. We'll hang out, you know? But I didn't miss class. I didn't miss class to go on dates. I didn't miss class to go to movies, you know? I went to class. You know, I knew there were only so many classes this week. There were only so many classes this year. And there's a lot of things I wanted to practice and learn, you know? And the only way I was learning is if I showed up to class. And if I didn't show up to class, I didn't learn that night.
At one point, I was riding a bus for 2 hours, show up to a 1-hour class.
Yeah,
And then wait 45 minutes for the bus back.
yeah,
And then a
Yeah.
2-hour bus ride.
yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, oh no, it's on the other side of town, it's too far away. Well, holy cow,
I was.
Gee, Dave went all the way to Hudon Mountain to learn. You know, you're not willing to drive 15 minutes. It's, you know, that's a problem, you know?
A lot of people are.
You know, you know, we can put it on the platter, but you do have to reach your hand out and grab it.
If you want the kung fu, show up to class. It's, I can't teach you if you
Yeah,
don't show up.
You know,
to class.
and I always thought when I paid my tuition, you know, basically that got me in the room. You know, at least with Wong Jackman, it got me in the room. And beyond that, it was how hard you worked. I mean, he taught everybody, but and he taught everybody pretty much the same.
And yet there are wild divergences. It's interesting, one of the old traditions was, I show you 3 times. Okay. Show you the first time. Okay. Show you the second time. Show you the third time. And then they're done. So that they're done with it. And so the idea is, if you go off and you practice that 10,000 times, it'll lock it in. The average person will do it once or twice. And then, you know, go off and they're suddenly a master. There's a lot of these self-appointed masters. You self-appointed masters out there, is that my camera? Yes, you self-appointed masters out there, you go practice. Stop fooling around. Stop misrepresenting what we do, okay?
Well, it's happened to me countless times.
Oh my goodness.
Where I go teach a 5-animal workshop, next thing you know.
They're
5
teaching your
workshop.
material, yeah.
Yeah, everybody in there is now an expert. Oh, yeah.
And so I can only imagine how many times you guys.
Oh, yeah.
I won't name any names. There are some people in the Northern Shaolin community that are just some of the most atrocious individuals you've ever seen, that are running around saying that they're masters, that I just happen to know that they never even completed the basic course with any
Yeah,
known
yeah.
teacher.
Well, I think a classic I've seen a whole bunch of times is Kempo Black Belt or Kempo expert, you know, owns a school or whatever. They come in, they learn the Tai Chi form, and as soon as they finish the last move, they're a Tai Chi master and they're running classes at their own school. I mean, like the next month, they just learned the moves. They spent 6 months maybe learning them, you know, this happened to Wong Jackman over again, because it takes a long time to learn the long form, you know?
Yeah,
And
it
then
does.
boom, out the door, there you go, another Tai Chi master right there.
And that is called
Very tight
the
mechanical.
diminishing effects of Tai Chi. I see some Tai Chi out there that is unrecognizable as Tai Chi, and they don't even understand that there is a martial side to it. Right, the Tai Chi
Yeah,
is,
most people aren't interested in that for Tai Chi. I mean, most people are really just looking for help.
Tai Chi is how you throw a person across the room, whether they want you to or not. That's what Tai Chi, it's a nasty style of wrestling. You didn't know. You didn't know.
Well, I think this is so cool because many people know me as a Budon guy. Very few people know that I have Shaolin roots too.
Yes.
My very first Shaolin teacher was in Hawaii, Ao Sang, Southern Shaolin. And then my second teacher was YC Chang, Osrito at the Wentworth School. And it was YC that actually wrote my invitation letter for me to go to Budon.
And YC was one of my teachers. Right. So we are connected, we are brothers.
YC, we are family.
Well, I'm gonna just go back to one thing you were saying, like, Steve Keys was saying, you know, they showed you 3 times, and this was a sort of a tradition, and, you know, and that's how I learned. Wong Jackman would walk up, you know, and he might say hello, or he might say your turn, or he might not say anything at all, and just like gesture. And then he would have remembered where I was, and I mean, I would have been practicing, so it would have been pretty easy to see where my
You
last
remember
move is.
exactly where he left off.
And then he would show me the next, perhaps 10 moves.
Ooh,
Got one shot. Yeah, he would pound it.
We
And
only
then,
did a couple.
he would show it to me 3 times.
Mhm.
And then he'd walk away.
Yes.
Without saying a
Yes.
single word.
That is the tradition.
And then, you know, I would be there, thank you, Sifu, you know, and after a while, I would like totally bow and like get into it. It was just me, you know, nobody else was really doing that. I was just like super respectful. But he said 3 times and walk away. And which without a single word of explanation. And I had the first 3 years of my classes with him were like that. And if I went to ask him a question, he would show it to me after making a funny face. He would show
Yes.
it to me one more time,
Ooh, you were lucky.
and that would be it. But I didn't want to ask him the second, I didn't want to have to ask him.
Well, if you
the
didn't
second time.
remember, it was disrespectful, because that means you weren't paying attention and you're wasting his time.
Exactly, you know, and see, the old school thing was like Confucius was like, if I draw one corner, the good student will draw the other three,
Yeah.
you know? So that's a standard of effort that's expected on the student. And if I tried to chit chat with him, he would just turn around and walk away. And after 3 years, then he would walk up and tell me things. And usually it was like 1 or 2 or 3 sentences. But those would have been the first 1 or 2, 3 sentences of a book.
Yeah.
Right? And it was my job to write that book and read it, you know? But those sentences, he would have been watching me for a long time, and then he would give me, you know, a comment that I would consider to be like key log. It will unblock the logjam. And I might spend 6 months digesting that comment, you know? And that's a lot of how I learned from him. But the forms that he was laying down, the movements that he was showing me, nobody else was teaching. You know, everybody in everything in San Francisco is mostly Southern Kung Fu.
Mhm.
And his physical capability was extraordinary. And he would demonstrate with just incredible precision and clarity. It was really, you know, so you really did get a good look, and it forced me to develop my perceptual skill and my ability to memorize. And so I had memorized the moves after I saw them the first time. And then the second time, I was sort of like making notes to myself and double checking. And then the third time, I was trying to steal the timing. And then I would have, and but then, you know, if you practice for half an hour the same moves, and then you ask to see them one more time, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You know,
He saw you work.
he saw me working really hard on it, and he knew I really wanted to learn it.
Mhm.
And but that was sort of how we learned, you know, like the teacher being encouraging and optimistic or positive. I never experienced any of that, you know. I mean, I think in the entire time that I studied with Long Jackman, in 25 years, I think he praised me to my face 3 times. Maybe only twice.
You know, the first compliment I ever got from my teacher, he says, "Oh, looks like you've been practicing your basics." It was like the first big compliment. The man never gave me the time of day.
Right, and you were ready to have a party that night, right? You went out and class
I
like you
really
were
was.
dancing on your toes, right?
Because I had spent that summer practicing Tantui with a 50-pound weight vest, 10-pound wrist weights, and 20-pound ankle weights on a football field from goalpost to goalpost.
That'll do it.
Yeah, and that's what it took to get us to notice that, oh yeah, okay, you're making progress in
And he
your
was-
foundation.
And it was very clannish when I got there. And nobody wanted to teach me. A couple of people even taught me wrong, just for giggles, I guess.
Yeah, no, there was, I would say there was a lot of sort of cliquishness in class too.
Always.
And, you know, Siegel was very happy to teach, you know, all of us, non-American born Chinese people. But there was definitely, the whole thing was broken, the class was broken into cliques, you know? And as far as me getting help from any of the Chinese American students, that wasn't gonna really happen, you know? If anything, they were gonna give me a hard time and be nasty.
Maybe
You
take
know?
you out in the hallway and beat you up.
Mm.
Well, I don't know if they could have done that.
Well,
I mean, I'm just like you, I would have really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm mellowing out. I wouldn't enjoy it at all.
thank you.
Not now,
Because
but.
on the conversation of not getting praise from the traditional teacher, I didn't get a good job from my teacher until I had left, started my own school, came back with students.
Mhm.
Then it's like, okay, good.
They like that stuff. They further the tradition.
Mm. All right, well, I would be amiss if I didn't ask you guys about something that happened in your generation more than in my generation. Challenges. Do you guys ever get challenged?
You want to go first or should I?
Why don't you go first?
I got challenged quite a bit early on, and I was a little emotionally immature at that time. And so I had a couple of people come in my school and didn't kick them through the window. But yeah, and then when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu started to get big, these different guys would come around. But by that time, I was so good natured and so confident that, you know, I could see these guys would come for a challenge and I'd just be like, you know, I'd welcome them and shake their hand firmly, look them in the eye. And never had any problem with those guys. They were always, all the BJJ guys I've run into have been really respectful. But it was usually like somebody who had studied a little Muay Thai for 6 months, come back and wanted to test himself. And it's, you know, try to leg kick me, and then I'd kick shin to shin, and they'd lay there, and I'd be like, "You're a much better martial artist than I am." It's obviously a fluke. Are you okay? Yeah, so I had a few of those, but no war stories. I'm trying to be mature. I'm working. So.
Well, you know, I think maybe it's just to make a couple of sort of like comments about the culture at that point, because people were really curious which martial art was better. Okay, people were very curious about that, and you know, the very first UFCs were sort of an ultimate expression of just throwing everybody in there and like, let's see what works and what have you guys got. But people were curious, is Kung Fu better? Is karate better? Is Aikido better? What have you got? What, you know? So there was a sort of a culture of challenging, but I think it was more friendly than people think. You know, like it wasn't necessarily like amped up, full of anger, kind of thing. You know, and that there were many times I saw somebody practicing in the park, and I would go over, oh, you're doing Kung Fu, you're doing some Tai Chi, and you know, would you like to spar? Would you like to do some pushing hands? You know, and just like totally friendly, like, oh, no problem. And they don't want it, no problem. Oh, okay, you're up for it. Hey, that's great. Let's spar. You know, I never met him before. I just saw him in the park the first time. Or they walk up to me, you know. I remember one time I was working in a house in San Francisco, really close to the Panhandle, Golden Gate Park. And back in the day, the Panhandle it's like between two one-way streets that got a lot of lanes, and it's like just a park. But the area is wide, and in the middle there's some really nice paved areas and a lot of lawns. It's all flat. And there used to be a lot of Kung Fu teachers who teach out in different spots there. And you know, the 70s and 80s, San Francisco, there was lots of Kung Fu schools, lots of Kung Fu styles, and lots of martial arts overall. Way more martial arts.
It was a mecca then.
It was a mecca. I mean, it was like if you were leaving Asia, where did you want to go if you had a choice? What was your first choice? Well, Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco, LA, New York. I mean, there's only a few places, and San Francisco had a great rep. So any martial arts, what was that?
Honolulu, yeah.
And Honolulu, yes. And the thing about Hawaii though is it's a smaller place, you know. And so there used to be a big scene out there in the Panhandle of Golden Gate Park. And guy was out there, he had his class, he taught his class, and they were doing some push hands, and I was eating my lunch, and I finished my lunch, and I walked over, and the students had all gone, you know, and I said, hey, you know, I went over and I was like, hey, would you like to do some push hands? You know? And it was really funny because he was wearing a shirt that said, go ahead, make my day. Like the Dirty Harry movie, okay? And he was dressed up in martial arts, and I had my contractor boots on, you know, I was, you know, working in the house, and I had my construction clothes on, and so we started to push hands, you know, and he wasn't very good, and I uprooted him, pushed him back, and it was a really long ways. I uprooted him like a whole bunch of times in a row, And he didn't have much, and I don't know, I just kept doing it. And then he started getting upset, you know? And then he started like trying to like do joint locks on me and trying to trip me. And, you know, I'm like thinking, wow, you know, I'm wearing work boots with steel toes.
Dirty push.
And you're like trying to do low kicks on me or like mess with my legs.
You
It's
want
like,
to get kicked
and you
back.
got sneaky, you don't want to get kicked back, right? You know, I mean, I've had more people doing it, playing push hands to try and take cheap shots on me than just like, you know, meeting somebody in sparring. You know?
So that's,
And if the other person wasn't as good, nobody's gonna beat you down. We didn't throw people on the ground and pound them.
this is a problem I have
in the
with the push
70s,
hands
80s.
people.
Yeah,
Is attempting to savage you during gentle push hands. That's,
right.
I don't know who you are, but you better stop doing that, okay? It's not cool.
Oh, no, I've adopted the attitude, if I don't really know somebody and we're pushing hands, then I am 100% ready to just start punching.
Oh, yeah, that's what you should
Any
do.
moment. You know, I'm just going, and as soon as you start joint locking me, I'm gonna trash you, man, you're down on the ground. you know?
Also, guys, push hands is not fighting.
Yeah, yeah, but, you know, people start losing and then they start trying to do joint locks on you and injure your fingers, I don't
It's
need
kind of
that,
hilarious.
you know? Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious.
But it wasn't such a severe thing, and, you know, because there were no cameras back then, nobody was being recorded, right? You know, it wasn't like you're showing up and you've got a posse of people who are gonna make 15 videos of it and publish it all on social media. You know, you could meet somebody in the park, or you could go over and, you know, like you might go over to your friend's house and meet their friends, and everybody would spar, and it would just be friendly,
Mhm.
you know?
It was really
And-
laid back,
It was much more.
except for the
laid back.
headhunters.
There were people that they could be.
They were out there.
But there weren't that many, you know, and I mean, even in Peter Ralston's school, like, basically, I got first crack at anybody that wanted to spar with him. And then if they wanted to spar with him, then, well, we had a deal where I would try and get as much money out of them as I could, and we would split it 50-50. That was my deal with Peter. And, but they didn't get to just come in and spar with him, you know? And if it wasn't me, there would have been plenty of other people that would have been happy to, you know? And I, you know, like his class, we had an hour or two of partner practice every single day. You know, it was very, very application oriented. And, you know, with Wong Jackman's school, how much people worked on application was entirely up to them. You know, entirely up to them. Some people did no applications training, and some people did a fair amount, you know. You know, but going up to Wong Jackman and asking him, how do I use this technique? That didn't yield an answer usually.
Oh, okay.
It didn't yield an
It was
answer.
my teacher who had to be.
Smack me.
Yeah, same thing. You had to be ready for the application. My teacher would be like, what's that for? I remember asking that move in the praying mantis. It's like kind of a reverse hand cut to the waist. And I asked my teacher what that's for, and he had me put my right foot forward and punch with the left hand. And he caught it and he kicked my right hand and crossed me up, and I'll never forget it. It's like I felt it through my whole body, and my back was twisted up, and I was just laying there going, how do I get up? So yeah, he would show you. I would usually try to get him to do it on one of the young guys as I got older.
In Wudang, we have horse-tail whisks.
Right.
So I go, that doesn't hurt.
Thing will cut you wide open. The horsetail whisks.
Yeah, so you see what, you know, like if you wanted the answer, you have to come forward and be like, is this how you use it? And have like a legit, I've already worked on this, and, you know, or I'd say, well, I've been trying to figure out how to use this one, and I'm just not really getting anywhere. You know, I tried this, and I don't think any of these are any good. And then he'd be like, okay, it's like this. But then he would say it softly and sort of show you discreetly. So if you were standing more than 3 or 4 feet away, nobody in the world heard or saw any of that exchange, you know? And then you would get the real application, you know? But you didn't get that without making an effort to try and get, you know, he wanted to see that, okay, you've got 2.5 more corners here. All right, I'm gonna give you a little slack on that last bit of that third corner, you know? But he did know a lot later on. And I think partially too, it was just the classes were a little smaller, so he could actually devote more time to people. but no, he got a lot more patience. We showed people as many times as they needed, you know.
Our
You know,
group,
he did adopt to the culture that way.
our group name, the Harmonious Fist, rose out of. So in the beginning, my teacher wasn't teaching applications. It was just, come to class, do the form, figure it out on your own. And so some of my classmates and I got together, and a friend of ours had used the term harmonious fist, Society of the Righteous Harmonious Fist, which we didn't know the history of that one. So we started using Harmonious Fist as we made a pact. There were like four of us: Uncle Mike, Troy Ogmore, and Harold Hazeldown, and myself. And we made an agreement that we would work out the applications that we weren't getting at class at that time, and that we had things to do on Monday. And so we made a vow not to injure one another during our practices.
Right.
So it came up out of that. But later, Harmonious Fist, I kind of used it as a dig, because I saw certain racial inequities in Chinese martial arts. And a lot of Chinese people were just more comfortable being around Chinese. And I get that, that's fine. But I started to use Harmonious Fist as kind of a joke. Because Society of the Righteous Harmonious Fist was actually a racist organization to eject foreigners violently from China, right?
So you were basically going back to the Boxer Rebellion.
I was kind of teasing my teacher. I hope he doesn't hear this. But it was just kind of like my little double entendre. I'm wicked like that sometimes. No one ever challenged my teacher at my teacher's class while we were there. I'm sorry. I remember one guy came in, and while my teacher was teaching the warm-ups, he goes up to my teacher and goes, "How much is the class?" And my teacher goes, "I'll talk to you later, go away." And the guy pulls out $5 and throws it at my teacher's feet. And before that bill hit the floor, I had him by the scruff of the neck and put him outside. And I said, "Don't you dare ever come back here." And my teacher barely noticed, but all my classmates did. So that was like a feather in my cap.
Yeah, I think in some ways it really got interesting when we started learning the partner forms.
Yeah.
Because that's when you really got the application, and then you got to feel Siku's arms, and also learning pushing hands.
Only certain people in our group got the 2-mat sets, and those were mainly the people who just didn't get it. It's like, most of us, we're street kids. And so you had to fight, right? And I got bullied a lot growing up. And so when I found out about martial arts, I just jumped in whole hog. I practiced it like a demon, because I didn't want to be, beaten up anymore. And then, after I got confident and comfortable, I got really gentle. Never bullied anybody, never hurt anyone that didn't have it coming to it.
Feel that.
And just gave a lot of people love. I made a lot of friends in the martial art world.
I was the same way. When I grew up in Richmond, always fighting.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started to learn martial arts, Well, guys, we're going on an hour now, and we could talk forever, I'm sure.
I could talk to you all day. I love you.
Well, before we wrap this up, clearly we have to do it again.
That'd be an honor. Thank you.
And so, where could my people find you?
Oh, 10,000 Victories.
Well, we have 10,000 Victories online, and at 10,000 Victories, we have an online Tai Chi program with over 600 lessons, covering all aspects of Tai Chi, curated into 5 different courses.
Highly recommend.
And I also have a very complete Qigong program launching all the time on there right now. And then through the rest of the year, we'll be putting up Xing Chuan and Northern Shaolin information as well. Nice. And I teach in the Marin County area, in Bay Area, in San Rafael. And
Thank you. I'm living in Colorado now, so I came down for your festivities and a couple of other ones. But I'm only teaching small group, private lessons only. You can find me Sifu Kisu Sifu Kiso, the Harmonious Fist on Facebook, or Sifu Kiso on Instagram. I don't maintain a website, or I don't do Zoom lessons, or I leave that to my more qualified friends, so.
Stephen Keesler does teach a number of seminars, in many different locations. A lot of schools do invite him to come out. So that's, you know, like, and both of us will show up at tournaments.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're attending the Chinese Kung Fu tournaments and the Tai Chi tournaments, you know, we're likely to be there with our students and or competing. And if you haven't attended these tournaments, you should really go, because you get a lot of experience of the culture of traditional Kung Fu and, Tai Chi all at once, all in one day. You get to see lots and lots of different things and educate your eyes.
I'd also like to give a plug. Keep an eye out for our 5 Elements workshop, where we're inviting Sifu David and Sifu Scott Jensen. So that's coming up either later on in this Wood Dragon year or early next year. We met a little resistance this year, so I'm attempting to be in harmony with the poetic forces that are afoot.
The Wood Dragon.
Yes. And tune in to David's podcast regarding the Wood Dragon Talk with our buddy Shane Zeus. Very informative. I was blessed enough to be here for that presentation the other day. And that man knows his stuff. That's really good stuff. And this guy, don't forget. This is
We know
one of
that.
the
I guess the
most
other
amazing
thing
things
I should have mentioned is that we also have a podcast. We have the Ancient Wisdom Modern Health podcast.
Can I
And-
be on your podcast?
Oh, we're looking forward to having you on our
Yes.
podcast. It'll be a lot of fun. And the first season I did 52 lectures on different subjects, all related to Tai Chi and Kung Fu and the culture of the whole thing. And we're just about to launch the first new season. We took 2 years off, and we're about to do another series. And this time I'm going to continue to do lectures. And I'm also going to do lots of interviews with exciting, interesting experts in the field like Dawei and Sifu Kisu. So
But keep an eye out for our podcast. that
Yeah.
we're
we just
working on
recorded
right
one
now.
too, so.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we made sure to cover different material than we covered here today. So it will be fun and interesting.
Perfect. All right. Any last words?
I love you.
The last words would be practice more.
Okay. Do it again.
Practice more. Practice hard, more chi. Chi young man.
Cheers.
Mm.